In a rugged part of the Wild West, where the sun baked the earth and dust hung in the air like a thick curtain, lived a woman named Clara. She toiled day and night in a small mining camp, dreaming of a life beyond the relentless grind of picking through the dirt for the slightest shimmer of gold. Clara was not like the other miners. She had a fierce spirit, a heart full of hope, and an eye for opportunity that few could match. One fateful afternoon, while digging deep in a forgotten corner of the mine, her pickaxe struck something solid. A jolt of excitement coursed through her veins. She knelt, heart racing, as she brushed away the loose dirt. What emerged took her breath away, a nugget the size of her fist. Its gleam caught the fading sunlight, glowing with the promise of freedom and prosperity. Unbeknownst to Clara, she was being watched. From the shadows of the entrance, a figure emerged. It was Jack, a disillusioned cowboy who had once roamed the West with grand dreams of adventure. But here he was, just another weary soul seeking his fortune, now feeling the weight of disappointment heavily upon him. As he approached Clara, he couldn't help but admire her determination and grit. "This place don't deserve you," he whispered, reverence lacing his voice. Clara looked up, startled, seeing Jack for the first time. His rugged face held a kindness, a sincerity that drew her in like the stars to the night sky. She smiled, brushing his words aside, but deep down they resonated with her. Could this place truly be as bleak as it seemed? Jack knelt beside her, eyes gleaming with a mix of admiration and curiosity. "You found something special, Clara. This nugget could change everything," he said, gesturing toward the treasure. She held the nugget loosely in her hands, contemplating its weight, not just in her palms, but in the possibilities it carried. "It could," Clara replied, her voice steady. "But what good is gold without a way to use it? I want to build something, not just hoard wealth." Jack felt a spark of inspiration ignite within him. He had spent years lost in the harsh realities of life, but Clara's vision offered a glimpse of hope. "What if we teamed up?" he proposed. "Your dream, my strength. We could create a place where everyone thrives, not just the lucky few." As they exchanged ideas, their dreams began to intertwine like the wildflowers pushing through cracks in the stone. Clara saw a future filled with life, laughter, and shared success, while Jack envisioned a community where hard work would cultivate prosperity for all. The nugget was just the beginning. It represented the potential they both longed for. But the Wild West was not without its dangers. News spread quickly about Clara's discovery, and soon whispers of jealousy and greed filled the air like a brewing storm. Local miners, desperate for their own fortune, set their sights on Clara and Jack. One night, under the cover of darkness, a group of men approached their camp, torches in hand and intentions menacing. Clara and Jack stood together, shoulder to shoulder, as the men confronted them. "That gold belongs to us, you know," one man sneered, hate glimmering in his eyes. "You should either hand it over willingly or get out of our way." Jack stepped forward, heart pounding, the weight of Clara's dreams resting on his shoulders. "You don't understand," he replied. "This gold isn't just a piece of rock. It's a chance for something new. We're not just going to give it up." The tension hung thick in the night air, each side measuring the other. Clara felt a surge of courage. "You can't take our dreams. You can't take our future," she declared, her voice steady and resolute. The men paused, taken aback by her defiance. In that moment, Clara and Jack made a pact. They would not be swayed by fear or greed. They would fight for their vision, not with weapons, but with unity and resolve. The townsfolk began to rally around them, drawn by the fire of their conviction. The camp's lifeblood pulsed with newfound energy as miners, families, and dreamers came together, fueled by Clara's fierce spirit and Jack's strength. Days turned into weeks, and every setback was met with determination. Clara and Jack built a place where miners and families could thrive, a community thriving on shared dreams and hard work. The nugget became a symbol of resilience, sparking hope that spread beyond their camp. As time passed, Clara reflected on how far she had come. The dream she had once held alone had turned into something greater than she ever imagined. The adventurers and vagabonds, the weary travelers seeking solace from the harsh winds of the West, found a home among them. Together, they forged a new path, one where everyone had a chance. And so Clara and Jack stood at the edge of their camp, looking out at the lives they had created. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, a promise of new beginnings. "This place doesn't just deserve us," Jack said, his gaze steadfast. "We deserve each other, and together we'll shape a brighter future." Clara squeezed his hand, feeling a surge of hope wash over her. The spirit of the Wild West was fierce and wild, but they were ready to embrace it, not just for themselves, but for everyone who believed in the promise of a better tomorrow. In that moment, they knew their journey was just beginning, and no challenge could erase the dreams they had built together. As the days turned into months, Clara and Jack's camp grew into a vibrant community. News of their success spread like wildfire through the Wild West, attracting miners, families, and dreamers from far and wide. They came seeking not just gold, but a place where they could belong, where they could contribute to something larger than themselves. The camp evolved, with homes built from wood reclaimed from the surrounding forest. Children's laughter resonated through the air, mingling with the sounds of hammers striking nails and the lively chatter of neighbors gathering around communal fires. Clara had created a sanctuary, a piece of land that thrived on kindness and hard work, but prosperity attracted attention, and not all of it was welcome. In the shadows lurked those who felt threatened by the change occurring in the area. Among them was a notorious outlaw named Silas, a man whose reputation for violence was as well known as the town's saloon. Silas had heard of Clara's success and saw her camp as an opportunity to line his own pockets. One crisp morning, under a cloudless blue sky, Silas arrived at the camp with a handful of men who shared his thirst for greed and chaos. They entered town with swagger, their boots kicking up dust and eyes gleaming with malice. Jack, noticing their approach, felt a chill creep down his spine. He gathered Clara and a few trusted friends, preparing for a confrontation. "We need to stand together," Jack urged, his voice resonating with urgency. "Silas won't stop until he gets what he wants. We need to show him that we're not afraid." Clara nodded, determination set in her features. "We've built something worth fighting for. I won't let anyone take it away." As Silas and his men strode into the heart of the camp, Clara and Jack stood resolute at the front, surrounded by their neighbors. The atmosphere crackled with tension, every person aware that the peace they had worked so hard for hung in the balance. "Listen up!" Silas bellowed, his voice a mixture of bravado and menace. "This place is ripe for plucking, and I aim to claim my share. You lot don't know how to handle true business. Hand over what you've got, and maybe I won't turn this camp upside down." Jack stepped forward, his jaw clenched tightly. "We've earned this with sweat and sacrifice. We're not handing anything over to you." Silas smirked, a dangerous glint in his eye. "You're brave, I'll give you that, but bravery alone won't protect you from what's to come." The crowd shifted uncomfortably, fear creeping in. Clara raised her voice, fierce and unwavering. "You think your threats scare us? We've faced more than you can imagine to build this community. You can't intimidate us into submission." The tension escalated, and it felt as if the earth itself was holding its breath. Silas's men shifted restlessly, glancing at their leader. "Maybe it's time to teach them a lesson," one of them suggested, raising his weapon. But Clara held her ground, eyes locked with Silas's. "If you think you can tear us apart, you'll have to fight every single one of us. We stand together or not at all." Jack, sensing Clara's steady resolve, felt his own courage rise. "We're not afraid of you, Silas. Try us, and you'll see what we've built here is stronger than your threats." Silas hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. He understood that this was different. These people had something worth protecting, but his greed was a powerful force, and with a sneer, he rallied his men. "Then let's see how brave you really are," Silas growled, signaling his gang forward. Just as the situation turned to chaos, Clara shouted, "Hold on!" She quickly pulled out the precious gold nugget they had found together, the very one that had sparked their journey. "This nugget symbolizes our dreams and our lives here. If you want it, you'll have to fight for it, and it won't be handed to you without consequences." The outlaw paused, taken aback by her defiance. There in her hand lay not just a nugget of gold, but the embodiment of their hopes, their blood, sweat, and tears. Silas's eyes narrowed as he considered this new turn of events. "You think that shiny rock can protect you?" he retorted, though uncertainty had seeped into his bravado. "No," Clara replied firmly, but it represents unity and resilience. If you want to challenge us, then challenge our resolve. We won't back down." The murmurs in the crowd swelled, and slowly they stood taller, shoulders straightening as they bolstered each other's spirits. Clara felt the weight of every shared dream in the air around her, weaving their fates together. Sensing their growing solidarity, Silas's confidence wavered. He glanced at his men, who were now hesitant. Clara took a bold step forward, raising the nugget high for everyone to see. "We choose to stand together, and together we will overcome." As if fueled by her words, the people rallied behind her. Jack joined her side, his presence a powerful testament to their promise. The once intimidating presence of Silas began to shrink as the villagers surged forward, standing hand in hand, resolute. "Leave now while you still can," Clara declared, her voice ringing with authority. Silas hesitated one last time, the defiance in Clara's eyes forcing him to reconsider. The power of the community lay heavy in the air, pushing back against the darkness of his intentions. With a final glare, he spun on his heel, retreating with his gang into the wilderness, allowing Clara's camp to breathe a collective sigh of relief. In the aftermath of that day, Clara and Jack's bond only grew deeper. They not only fought for their community, but fought with their community. The gold nugget became a symbol, not just of wealth, but of solidarity and strength. Clara's vision of a thriving place resonated louder than ever, inspiring everyone around her to dig deeper, not just into the earth, but into their hearts. The camp flourished, creativity blossoming in the once barren landscape. Clara and Jack worked tirelessly to build a future that welcomed all wandering souls. Trust was fostered, support was shared, and dreams were expanded. As Clara gazed out over what they had built, she knew that this was just the beginning. They had faced darkness, risen together, and what awaited them on this wild frontier would be theirs to shape. And on this land, under the burning sun and starry sky, Clara felt the heartbeat of a new future pulse with life. Their dreams were no longer just whispers in the wind. They were the very foundation upon which their future stood. As the days turned into weeks, the community thrived with newfound energy. Clara and Jack focused on establishing sustainable practices, teaching families how to farm the fertile ground surrounding their camp. They introduced crops that flourished under the warm sun, and soon vibrant fields of corn, beans, and squash burst forth, painting the landscape with life. Every evening the villagers gathered for communal meals, sharing stories of their pasts, celebrating their triumphs, and discussing their dreams for the future. The once dusty camp transformed into a bustling hub, filled with laughter and camaraderie. Clara beamed with pride, watching friendships blossom and resilience bloom in the hearts of their neighbors. But, as with every flourishing dream, shadows loomed in the distance. News reached the camp about a group of settlers hostile to their success. The whispers spoke of a faction determined to reclaim what they believed was rightfully theirs, land they claimed Clara and Jack had stolen. While Clara and Jack had built something beautiful, fear buried itself deep in their minds. One fateful evening, as the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the camp, a sense of unease swept through the streets. The sound of horses approaching signaled trouble. Clara and Jack exchanged worried glances and rallied the villagers. "Assemble, everyone!" Jack shouted, his voice resonating across the courtyard. The atmosphere shifted from light-hearted to tense as families hurried to gather their loved ones. Clara stood by Jack, heart racing. "We can't let fear take root here. We've fought too hard for this place." She looked out at the gathering crowd. "No matter what comes, we face it together." Just then, a group of 10 settlers rode into the camp, their faces hardened with hostility. At the forefront was a man named Graves, known for his aggressive tactics and unwavering determination to bend others to his will, his steely gaze fixed on Clara and Jack, fueled by envy and greed. "This land doesn't belong to you," Graves sneered, dismounting with a swagger that bespoke danger. "You're squatting on land that should have been ours. Hand it over, and maybe we'll let you leave without further trouble." Jack stepped forward, instincts heightened, steadfast against the threat. "This land is not yours anymore. We've built a community here. You won't take it from us." "Built a community?" Graves laughed, a mocking sound that sent chills down the villagers' spines. "You've built a nest for vermin. You think you can defy me and my men? We'll take back what's ours, no questions asked. Clara felt a surge of defiance rising within her. We're not leaving, she declared, her voice steady. We will fight for our home. This is not just dirt and rock, it's our lives, our families. Families? Graves chortled, waving his hand dismissively. You really think your dreams mean anything here? All you've done is invite trouble. My patience is wearing thin. The tension thickened like fog, stifling the air around them. Clara glanced at the villagers, seeing fear in their eyes, but also a flicker of hope igniting in their hearts. They had come this far. They couldn't back down now. Stand with me, she shouted to them, and shoulders straightened as bravery surged through the crowd. Let's show them what we've built, Jack echoed, stepping beside Clara, their convictions fueling each other. Graves tilted his head, surprising clarity piercing through his arrogance. You're brave, I'll give you that, but bravery without strategy is folly. He glanced over his shoulder, signaling his men to fan out, creating a wall of hostility around Clara and Jack. But you'll regret this choice. We'll make sure you pay dearly. And so will you, Clara shot back, a spark lighting in her chest. If you think you can intimidate us into submission, you don't know the strength of this community. With that declaration, the villagers rallied behind Clara and Jack. They were not just protecting themselves, they were defending the very essence of what they had built together. As the settlers advanced closer, the atmosphere teetered between confrontation and resolution. Clara raised her voice again, emboldened by the courage she felt radiating from the people beside her. This is our land, and we will fight for it, just as we fought for our dreams. We stand united. Seeing the sheer determination in their eyes, Graves's men hesitated, exchanging uncertain glances among themselves. It became clear to those assembled that unity was a powerful force eclipsing fear and doubt. Clara marked the moment, feeling a sense of hope swell within her. Are you ready to face us? Graves barked, attempting to reassert control. You really want to go down this path? Yes, Clara shouted back, her voice ringing with authority. We're ready. Just then, a voice rang out from the back of the crowd. It was an elder from the camp, his weathered face carrying the weight of wisdom and years. We are not just defending a piece of land. We are defending our right to live without fear and to create something beautiful together. The crowd stirred, a wave of resolve washing over them. Inspired, Clara spread her arms wide. We can overcome, not through violence, but through our unity, our strength, and our belief in each other. In that moment, it was as if a fire ignited within the crowd. Shouts of agreement erupted, clear and resonant. Together, they cried, feeling emboldened in the face of the looming threat. Graves's expression darkened, recognizing the shift in momentum. You think this can hold, he sneered, but uncertainty began to creep into his voice. Yes, because we will not be conquered, Clara responded, drawing on the conviction that had carried her this far. Then let's end this here, Graves spat, raising his voice. You think you're brave? We'll show you what happens when you defy us. As he spoke, tension escalated, but Clara's heart thudded with determination. In that moment, she realized real courage wasn't just in the fight, it was in the unity of those around her. She took a breath, preparing for the confrontation ahead. Together, they would protect their dreams, their lives, and the bond they shared. Clara and Jack stood resolute, ready to face whatever would come next, knowing that they were stronger together than any external threat could ever be. And as the battle loomed on the horizon, they knew their fight was not just for survival, it was for the very essence of their community and the dreams that had brought them together. The standoff hung thick with tension, every eye trained on Clara, Jack, and Graves, as the atmosphere crackled with anticipation. The villagers, united and resolute, stood in solid defiance, their hearts pounding in a synchronized rhythm of hope and courage. Clara felt the weight of their collective dreams pressing on her shoulder, fueling her determination to protect what they had built. All right, let's see just how strong this little camp really is, Graves sneered, signaling to his men. I suggest you move aside before we clear you out. No one is moving, Jack asserted, his voice firm. You'll have to go through us first. Graves raised an eyebrow, his confidence wavering momentarily. He glanced at his gang, noticing their uncertainty. You really want to fight for a piece of dirt, he challenged, though the bravado in his tone felt thin. This piece of dirt is our home, Clara fired back, stepping forward, heart pounding with conviction. "We've worked tirelessly to create a community here, a place filled with life, laughter, and hope. You'll have to deal with all of us to take it away." The words felt like a spark igniting something powerful within the crowd. Clara turned her gaze to the villagers, seeing their resolve harden in response to her courage. It was as if unity had woven an invisible shield around them, fortifying their spirits. "Then prepare for a fight," Graves replied, a flicker of fear now laced with anger. He raised his hand, motioning for his men to advance. Steps echoed ominously as they moved closer, but the villagers stood their ground, ready to defend their newfound home. In that pivotal moment, Clara felt the ground beneath her stir. The strength of her community surged around her, mingling with the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Remember why we stand here," she shouted to the gathered crowd, echoing the collective ambition that had brought them together. "We fight not for ourselves, but for our neighbors, our families, and the dreams we share." As the first of Graves's men lunged forward, Clara braced herself, ready to stand firm against the oncoming tide of aggression. Jack moved beside her, resolute, ready to protect her and their home. The air was tense, heavy with the anticipation of combat, but Clara's focus remained unbroken. Just as the two factions clashed, a loud voice interrupted the chaos. "Stop!" It was Elder Tom, a man revered for his wisdom and respect in the community. His voice, though weathered, carried an authority that made both sides pause. "Elder Tom!" Clara exclaimed, relief flooding her. "We need your help!" Tom rode forward, pushing through the throng. "This is not the way," he declared, turning to face both sides. "Violence begets violence. We must find another way, together." Graves stiffened, taken aback by Tom's entrance. "This isn't about you," he snapped. "These folks thought they could take what's mine. If they want to keep their place here, they must know what it means to stand up." "Knowing means finding common ground," Elder Tom countered firmly. "There is power in understanding, power in dialogue instead of destruction. You're angry, and that is valid, but is this what you truly want?" The tension simmered as everyone processed the elder's words. Clara felt the shift, the tension wavering slightly. The villagers exchanged glances, hopeful yet wary. "Let's talk," Clara urged, her voice steadying. "I know we've built something you want, but we can share in prosperity. Together, we can create a future, rather than destroy one another's." Graves's expression darkened, but Tom's presence seemed to chip away at the hostility surrounding them. "Why don't we step back, gather our thoughts?" Tom suggested. "Let's hear each other out. Hostility leads nowhere." For a heartbeat, the air quieted. It was as if the possibility of negotiation hung like a delicate strand. Clara felt both fear and hope intertwining in her chest. She was aware that this was a pivotal moment, an opportunity to reshape the course of their lives through words rather than weapons. "Fine," Graves spat, the defiance still echoing in his tone. "But know this, Clara. Cross me again, and I won't be so forgiving." He reluctantly stepped back, allowing his men to lower their weapons, albeit with evident reluctance. "Then let's sit down and talk," Clara said, feeling the tension release slightly among her neighbors. The villagers began to disperse, cautiously retreating to create space. The settlers followed suit, though some of their faces still reflected skepticism. Once everyone settled, a thick silence filled the air, punctuated only by the faint sounds of nature surrounding them. Clara took a deep breath, her mind racing. "We all have dreams," she started, glancing at the crowd. "As miners, we want to provide for our families. The land we've built can offer opportunities for everyone." "It's not that simple," Graves interjected, crossing his arms. His defiance still simmered beneath the surface. "You're asking me to trust you, but that's hard with what's been happening." "I understand," Clara responded earnestly, "but it starts with dialogue. Together, we can figure out a way for all of us to thrive. No one has to take anything from anyone else." Jack nodded in agreement, adding, "We can establish rules that benefit us all. No one should be forced out of their home for greed." Elder Tom chimed in, urging both sides to open their minds. "We've all traveled different paths, yet here we stand in the same arena. Let's not forget we share a bond beyond land, our humanity." A murmur of agreement rippled through their respective groups as Clara's words sunk in like seeds finding fertile ground. She felt the atmosphere start to shift, slowly transforming hostility into curiosity. After a long pause, Graves finally spoke, his voice softer but still guarded. "Okay, I'll listen. But if I sense betrayal, mark my words, this will end differently." Clara leaned forward, her hope rekindled. "Then let us build this future together. Let's negotiate, not as enemies, but as people working toward a common goal." With a tentative agreement in place, the conversation began, a slow but promising exploration of possibilities, with voices rising and falling in passionate discussion. What had once threatened to destroy their community began to forge a common path, creating a dialogue filled with understanding. Hours passed as discussions flowed, and though challenges awaited, Clara realized that they had taken the first step towards something greater. As the stars emerged in the night sky, twinkling above the camp, Clara leaned against Jack, feeling a sense of unity wrap around them. Together, they had faced the storm, and with courage and resilience, they paved a way to not only survive, but thrive, not just for their camp, but for the dreams shared between their once divided communities. As dawn broke over the camp, the golden rays of sunlight pierced through the remains of the night's tension, casting warmth across the gathered community. The air was thick with the scent of fresh coffee brewing and the distant sound of laughter as families came together to prepare for the day ahead. Clara awoke, her heart still racing from the previous night's negotiations, but now filled with a newfound hope. She stepped outside her modest cabin and took a deep breath, soaking in the serene beauty surrounding her. Jack joined her, rubbing sleep from his eyes, a slight smile creeping across his face. "We did it," he said, his voice a mix of disbelief and triumph. "We took the first steps," Clara replied, her gaze drifting over the bustle of the camp. "But today will be a true test. We need to turn those words into actions." Jack nodded, his eyes now sparking with determination. They had come together with the settlers, and although the night had ended with a semblance of agreement, Clara knew that building trust would be just as crucial as the negotiations themselves. As the sun climbed higher, Clara gathered the villagers around the central fire pit, where the embers from the night before lingered. She looked around at the familiar faces, friends, neighbors, and families who had all contributed to this community's foundation. "Today we begin the process of healing," Clara announced, capturing everyone's attention. "We have a chance now to work together with the settlers. It won't be easy, but if we commit to sharing our resources and knowledge, we can foster something that could last for generations." The crowd murmured in agreement, energy surging among them. Clara's conviction resonated, reminding them of the battles already fought, both against the challenges of mining and the uncertainties of life on the frontier. "In the spirit of unity," Clara continued, "let's invite the settlers to join us for a community meal later today. Let's show them what we've created together and forge a bond over shared experiences. We'll share stories, food, and our hopes for the future." Jack chimed in. "We can set up work groups to address the lands we each want to cultivate. Collaborating like this could turn our dreams into reality." After a brief discussion, they decided to gather a list of resources each family could contribute, allowing Clara and Jack to coordinate with the settlers on what was needed for shared crops and improvements to the camp. As the day progressed, Clara felt a wave of excitement wash over her. Children ran freely, their laughter mingling with the chatter of adults as they set to work preparing for the meal. Clara moved through the camp, offering encouragement as families stacked firewood and organized tables for the evening's gathering. But Clara's heart also held a flicker of anxiety. She knew that today was more than just a meal. It was a manifestation of their hopes, a crucial step in the road toward healing old wounds. She could only hope the settlers would accept their invitation. The sun began to set, painting the sky with hues of red and orange, promising a breathtaking twilight. Clara and Jack stood beside the central fire, preparing dishes of roasted meats, fresh vegetables, and the sweet corn that had flourished under their newfound care. They wanted to relay their commitment to working together through every aspect of their meal. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the first settlers began to arrive, their expressions a mix of curiosity and uncertainty. Graves led the charge with a more measured demeanor than they had previously encountered. Clara felt a flutter of nervousness in her stomach, but pushed it aside, reminding herself of the resolve that got them this far. "Welcome," Clara greeted, forcing a warm smile as she extended her hand. "We're glad you came. Tonight is about breaking bread together and finding common ground." Graves approached, studying Clara's face for any sign of weakness. "Thanks for the invitation," he replied, his voice softer than before. "Thought we'd give this a shot." As the settlers mingled with the villagers, there was a palpable tension in the air, but also a curiosity. Clara observed the conversations budding among neighbors as they shared stories of hardship, laughter, and dreams both fulfilled and lost. The fire crackled in the background, calming some of the anxious energy that had stifled conversation just hours before. Elder Tom made his way to the center of the gathering, tapping a wooden spoon against a pot to call for attention. "It takes courage to share, especially with those we've clashed with in the past. Let's honor these connections tonight." The villagers and settlers gathered closer, sharing the warmth from the fire as plates were filled. Clara felt the energy shifting. Barriers began to crumble as they broke bread. People laughed, shared jokes, and the sound of music soon filled the air as one of the villagers strummed a guitar, coaxing melodies from the night. Jack found Clara's side, gazing at the vibrant scene unfolding before them. "They're starting to relax," he observed, a smile spreading across his face. "I think we might actually do this." Clara nodded, her heart swelling with optimism. "It feels different tonight, like we're really building something here." As the evening wore on, Clara took a moment to step back and watch the growing camaraderie. She spotted a few children playing a game, laughter ringing out as they chased each other through the flickering firelight. The settlers and villagers shared stories about their lives, the struggles they faced, and the battles of resilience forged in hardship. But then, as moments of joy unfolded, a sudden commotion erupted near the edge of the gathering. Clara turned sharply, her heart racing as she noticed Silas, the notorious outlaw, striding into the camp, a storm cloud shadowing his presence. His eyes scanned the crowd, landing ominously on Jack and Clara. "Look what we have here," Silas bellowed, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "A lovely party of fools thinking they can overcome. Have you forgotten who really runs these parts?" Fear rippled through the crowd, disrupting the delicate atmosphere that had taken hours to foster. Clara felt her pulse quicken, a combination of anger and protectiveness surging within her. She stepped forward, grounding herself as she faced Silas. "This camp has found its strength in unity," Clara declared, her voice steady despite the tension rising. "We're no longer afraid of threats. You don't get to dictate our future." The awkward silence loomed for a moment, hanging between Silas's sneer and Clara's resolve. Jack moved protectively beside her, his body tense. Silas chuckled darkly. "You think your little gathering makes a difference? I can sweep through this place like a wildfire, leave nothing but ashes." The villagers returned to their collective resolve, rallying behind Clara and Jack. "We won't be intimidated anymore," Jack said, his voice booming. "Together we'll stand our ground." Reinforced by the courage of their shared experiences, Clara raised her chin defiantly. "We are no longer weak. We've built a community that fights for one another. You'll have to deal with all of us if you want to threaten our home." Silas's confident demeanor faltered for just a moment, and Clara seized the opportunity. "You can either choose to be part of the change, or you can remain on the outside, stewing in your own hatred. The choice is yours." The tension crystallized, and for a few heart-stopping moments, Clara and Silas faced one another, locked in a battle of wills. At that moment, Clara knew their future hinged on this confrontation, and she stood resolute, ready to defend what mattered most. Together, they all held their breath, waiting for Silas's response, knowing the stakes had never been higher. Silas stared at Clara, his smirk faltering, the dark edge of intimidation fading slightly. The gathered crowd, a mix of villagers and settlers, held their collective breath, straining to sense the outcome of the confrontation. Clara felt the weight of every gaze, every hopeful heart, prepared to stand firm against the man who threatened their newfound peace. "Is that so?" Silas finally replied, his voice low and dangerous. "You think a little unity will keep me at bay? You're playing with fire and you're going to get burned." Clara caught Jack's eye and they shared an unspoken agreement. "We're not afraid of you, Silas," Clara declared, her voice rising above the murmurs. "You underestimate us if you think a few threats can scare us away from our dreams." "Dreams?" Silas laughed, a harsh sound that cut through the night air. "You think your dreams are worth anything? You're all just a bunch of misfits playing house. I could blow this whole setup sky high with one word." With that, the tension in the air thickened again, but Clara refused to back down. She stepped forward, drawing strength from the courage she had seen blossom among her people. "You may think your threats carry weight, but the bonds we've forged are stronger than any weapon you wield." Silas's eyes narrowed, and in that moment, it became clear to Clara that he was unsure how to respond to her defiance. The gathered crowd began to murmur quietly amongst themselves, emboldened by her conviction. The unity they had built was palpable, and even someone like Silas couldn't ignore the force of a people who stood together. "Why don't you just turn around and leave?" Jack urged, stepping closer to Clara's side. "You won't find any allies here. We won't let you intimidate our families or disrupt this community we've worked so hard for." "Leave?" Silas recoiled, momentarily flummoxed by their unity. "I'll consider it if you decide to hand over that nugget of gold. You know, the one that should be mine. You share, and maybe I'll let you keep your little camp." Clara felt the heat of fury flush her cheeks. The nugget represented everything they had built, their struggles, their aspirations, and their unity. "It's not just about the gold," she asserted. "It is about our future and our right to exist without fear." Silas took a step forward, his presence looming ominously, but the villagers began to shift and whisper amongst themselves, their bravery reigniting as they sensed the tide turning. One by one they began to step forward, echoing Clara's defiance. "We're not giving you anything," shouted one of the miners, his fists clenched and face flushed with righteous anger. "We've earned this land through hard work, not taken it by force." "Exactly," another villager chimed in, feeling the collective energy rise. "We're stronger together." Seeing the stir among the gathered people, Silas scoffed, but could no longer mask the uncertainty creeping into his posture. "You think you can stand against me? I've dealt with tougher than you and come out on top. But you've never faced a community like ours," Clara shot back, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "We are fueled by our dreams, not hatred. You've already lost if you think violence is the answer." For a moment there was a palpable silence, as if the very air around them held its breath. Silas hesitated, surveying the crowd that had rallied behind Clara and Jack. The strength emanating from their shared unity was overwhelming, and he wrestled with the realization that he was vastly outnumbered. "Fine," he spat, frustration evident in his tone, "but don't think this is over. This peace is a lie. There will always be those who want what you've built." Jack stepped forward, his brow furrowed in defiance. "And we'll be ready for them, united as one. You have no power here unless we allow it." Silas's eyes darkened with anger, but he took a step back, realizing he had lost this battle. "You'll regret this," he muttered, turning on his heel. "I'll be watching." The crowd erupted into a chorus of cheers as Silas walked away, the weight of his threat finally lifting from Clara's shoulders. The villagers, emboldened, turned towards her and Jack, smiles breaking out among their faces, their camaraderie shining brighter than the stars above. "We did it!" Clara exclaimed, her voice ringing with triumph. "We stood our ground." Jack grinned, relief washing over him. "We did it, because we saw how strong we really are when we unite. This is just the beginning." Elder Tom approached, a knowing smile gracing his face. "You've ignited a fire in these people, Clara, a flame of hope that will guide us forward," he said, pride lacing his voice. With a determination that filled her heart to the brim, Clara replied, "Together we can face anything. I believe that this community can rise above any challenge." As the night continued, Clara watched her friends and neighbors come together under the stars, sharing laughter, stories, and dreams for the future. Conversations blossomed, and even those who had initially harbored skepticism found their voices softened by the warmth of shared experience. Jack took Clara's hand, squeezing it reassuringly. "We'll build more than just a community. We'll create a legacy." Clara's heart swelled at the thought, inspired by the unity and brilliance of their diverse community. They were creating a place where dreams thrived, bound together by resilience and hope. The memory of the threat lingered, but it dimmed in comparison to the light she felt surrounding her, a light that would guide them through the darkness. As she looked out at the faces illuminated by the flickering firelight, Clara knew they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, together. With the dream of a new and vibrant community resting in their hands, they embraced the journey that unfolded before them, resolved to make their mark in the ever-changing landscape of the Wild West, And within that promise, Clara found not just strength, but a profound sense of belonging. As dawn approached, a thick veil of fog settled over the camp, blanketing the ground in a cool, silvery mist. Clara stood on the precipice of a new day, the events of the previous night still echoing in her mind. The air was crisp and invigorating, filling her lungs with the promise of possibilities. She stood outside her cabin, sipping a warm cup of coffee, while the sounds of the camp waking up filtered through the mist. Families began to stir, children's laughter punctuating the morning air. Clara savored the moment, for it felt as if the camp had been reborn overnight. The bond forged during the confrontation with Silas brought them closer together. Last night, they had been so much more than just a collection of individual dreams. They had become a community united. Jack emerged from his cabin, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. "What a night," he said, his voice still thick with morning grogginess. "If that was a test, we passed with flying colors." "We did," Clara replied, a smile spreading across her face. "But it's just the beginning. Today I want to start working on the plans we discussed with the settlers." Jack's expression brightened. "You mean the communal garden? The resource sharing? Clara, that's a fantastic idea. If we get everyone involved, we'll lay the foundation for trust." "Exactly," Clara enthused, her heart racing with excitement. "Let's draw up a plan and gather everyone. The more hands we have working together, the more productive we'll be." Over breakfast, the villagers gathered, their spirits high from the celebration of unity the night before. Clara stood at the front of the table, calling for everyone's attention. "Thank you for your strength last night," she began, her voice warm and genuine. "What we accomplished together was remarkable. But now, we have a chance to build something enduring. A community garden." A murmur rippled through the crowd, curiosity and enthusiasm growing. Clara continued, "This garden isn't just a place for us to grow food. It's a symbol of cooperation. We'll break ground together, planting the seeds of both crops and trust." Jack took the lead, detailing the logistics. "We can divide the tasks. Some families can prepare the soil, others can work the land, and we can set up a rotation for planting and maintenance. This way, everyone has stake in its growth." Families nodded in agreement, and soon enough Clara felt the familiar warmth of excitement bubbling through her. "Let's meet after the sun reaches its highest point," she suggested. "We can pick a spot nearby that gets ample sunlight and is close to the water source. By working together, we'll make it thrive." As the day progressed, Clara moved with purpose, rallying her neighbors to gather tools and clear the designated area for the garden. She felt a sense of purpose swell within her, her heart swelling with anticipation of what they could achieve. This was more than just farming. It was creating a legacy. After a few hours of hard work, the collective effort began to take shape. There was laughter and playful banter as families shared stories and offered help to one another, strengthening their bonds with each passing moment. Clara moved through the crowd, stopping to assist where needed while also offering encouragement, her passion infectious. As the sun climbed higher, Clara led a small group to retrieve seeds from their stores, the excitement palpable in the air. The prospect of planting, of nurturing life from the earth, stirred something deep within her. She handed out seeds, explaining what each type would grow and how they could intermix for optimal yield. Just as they were about to begin planting, the sound of hooves echoed in the distance. Clara squinted toward the horizon, her stomach knotting with anticipation as she saw a group of riders approaching. It was the settlers from the neighboring camp, Graves leading the charge. She felt her heart race, the fleeting memory of the confrontation momentarily shadowing her excitement. "Stay calm," Clara whispered to Jack, her voice steady. She stood tall, remembering the strength they had forged together. "We've got this." As the riders neared, Clara saw a mix of expressions on their faces: curiosity, apprehension, and perhaps a hint of respect. Graves dismounted, his demeanor less menacing than before, though still guarded. "We heard about the garden," he announced, folding his arms across his chest. "We wanted to see what all the fuss is about." Clara raised an eyebrow, surprised but unwilling to show weakness. "It's about community," she replied, her voice unwavering. "We're working together to create something bigger than ourselves." Graves nodded slowly, his expression shifting. "Mind if we join? A little cooperation might not be such a bad idea after all." Clara exchanged glances with Jack, who shrugged slightly. It was an unexpected offer, but perhaps it was the perfect opportunity to solidify the fragile bonds they had begun to create. "Of course," Clara said, her heart racing with hope. "The more the merrier." With that, the settlers fell in step beside the villagers, the line between their groups blurring under the shared goal of growth and resilience. As they began to plant, Clara moved among the various families, her enthusiasm contagious. "This will be our garden," she told the group, "a place where both our communities can come together, share food, and create something beautiful." Laughter and chatter filled the air as the work continued, hands digging into the earth and seeds finding their way into the fertile soil. The garden began to take shape, a living testament to their collaboration, their commitment to turning conflict into cooperation. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting a golden hue over the newly cultivated land, Clara stepped back to admire their efforts. Rows of freshly planted seeds shimmered in the evening light, and she felt a swell of pride and hope. Suddenly, a child from the village ran up to Clara, holding a small sprout in their hand. "Look, Clara, it's growing already." Their eyes sparkled with delight, and Clara couldn't help but smile. "Well, that's just the beginning," she said, kneeling to be at eye level with the child. "With a little sunlight and love, this garden is going to grow stronger than any of us can imagine." As they finished up for the day, Clara felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude wash over her. The fragile bonds of fear and doubt had transformed into threads of trust and collaboration. Together, they were cultivating not just a garden, but the foundation of a brighter future, a sanctuary built on hope, friendship, and the indomitable spirit of the Wild West. With the last rays of sun fading into twilight, Clara turned to Jack, heart full. "We did it," she whispered, the calm serenity wrapping around her like a warm embrace. "This is only the beginning." As night fell, the garden stood as a testament to their collective efforts, the shadows stretching long under the soft glow of the evening stars. Clara and Jack gathered with the villagers and settlers around a roaring fire near the edge of the newly planted plot, the air filled with the scents of roasted meat and fresh bread. It was a moment of celebration, a night to honor their hard work and the bonds they had formed. Clara listened with joy as laughter echoed through the night, stories shared under the light of the stars spilling forth like cherished secrets. She marveled at how quickly the initial tension and apprehension had dissipated, replaced by a shared narrative of resilience and collaboration. Jack leaned over to Clara, his voice barely audible above the laughter. "You know, I think tonight is really going to solidify things. They're starting to see what we can accomplish together." "I hope so," Clara replied. She glanced around at their gathered friends, neighbors, and even former adversaries, now brought together by shared purpose. "This garden can be the beginning of something truly extraordinary." As the fire crackled and the night deepened, Elder Tom stood up, drawing the attention of the crowd. "Tonight we celebrate not just the fruits of our labor, but the strength of our community," he said, his voice steady and warm. "We've faced challenges that could have torn us apart, but instead, we've chosen to come together. This garden symbolizes our commitment to one another." A cheer erupted from the crowd, their spirits buoyed by the elder's words. Clara's heart swelled with pride, her vision of unity blossoming like the seeds they had just planted. "We may not all share the same background," continued Elder Tom, "but here we are brothers and sisters, bound by our shared hopes for a better tomorrow." Clara caught Jack's eye, and they exchanged a smile. The garden had already done what they hoped it would, bring people together, foster understanding, and create a safe space for dreams to flourish. As plates were shared and stories flowed, Clara felt a ripple of joy pass through her. The night grew late, yet no one seemed eager to leave the warmth of the fire or the company of newfound friends. Families laughed, children played, and the atmosphere was filled with a magical blend of hope and camaraderie. But deep down, Clara sensed that Silas's shadow lingered, an unsettling reminder of threats that could still loom on the horizon. It was a fleeting thought that momentarily clouded her joy, but she quickly pushed it aside, focusing instead on the warmth their gathering provided. The fire represented safety, a shield against the darkness of doubt. As the stars twinkled above, a sense of belonging settled within Clara's heart. She thought of what this night would mean for their future and how far they had come in such a short time. Amidst the laughter and joy, she felt a sense of gratitude not just for their success, but for the journey, the hardships and victories that had led them to this point. Hours later, as the fire began to dwindle and the first hints of dawn threatened the night sky, Clara sensed a shift amongst the group. Graves, who had joined them reluctantly, stood to address the crowd. His posture was more relaxed now, though still tinged with the pretenses of the past. "I've been thinking," he started, catching the attention of those nearest to him. "You've done something remarkable here. I didn't believe you could come together like this, but you have. Maybe there's more to this arrangement than I initially thought." Clara held her breath, wary yet intrigued. "What do you mean?" she asked, encouraging him to elaborate. Graves ran a hand through his hair, looking out over the group. "I've been looking at what you're building, and perhaps it's time we explore more cooperation between our camps. There might be opportunities for trade, for sharing resources and skills, if we can set aside our differences." A ripple of confusion swept through the crowd, punctuated by the hushed whispers of disbelief. Clara's heart raced. Was this a genuine offer, or merely a tactical maneuver? She exchanged glances with Jack, who nodded slightly, prompting her to speak. "If you're serious about this, Graves, it could be the beginning of a fruitful relationship," Clara replied carefully, weighing her words. "But trust needs to be established, and it can't be one-sided." Graves nodded, displaying an unusual vulnerability. "I understand that, but I believe we're at a crossroads. We have a chance to build something stronger if we work together. I propose we set up a meeting, foster this relationship further. Maybe we can trade ideas and resources that benefit both camps." The villagers murmured amongst themselves, a blend of skepticism and cautious optimism urging them forward. Clara took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her community's hopes resting on her shoulders. "Let's consider this a step toward trust," she concluded. "We will work with you and explore what this could mean for both our communities. But it must be built on respect and equality." Graves extended a hand, and Clara hesitated for a moment before stepping forward to shake it. There was a gravity to the gesture, the weight of their shared history settling within it. The crowd watched, anticipation and curiosity igniting the air around them. As their hands met, a collective sense of possibility washed over the gathering. The flickering light of the dying fire reflected a sense of hope for the future, and for the first time, Clara felt a genuine connection forming between their two camps. As the chill of night began to dissipate and the first rays of dawn broke through the lingering fog, Clara's heart filled with renewed resolve. They stood on the brink of something transformative, a chance to cultivate not just the land, but also the bonds that had once seemed impossible. The sun rose softly, casting a golden light over the gardens and the faces gathered around them. Clara felt that today would mark the beginning of a new chapter. They were bound together not merely by circumstance, but by the courage to face the challenges ahead, a courage that would nurture their dreams into reality. As they all prepared to embrace the new day, Clara turned to Jack, her eyes gleaming with determination. "Together, we have the power to shape our destiny," she declared. And in the light of a brand new dawn, the promise of tomorrow shimmered just ahead, theirs for the taking. The next days unfolded with a vibrant energy that infused the camp with renewed purpose. Clara and Jack, buoyed by the promise of cooperation with the settlers, pushed forward with their plans to cultivate the garden. Families came together, forming work crews and pooling resources, excited by the prospect of what they could achieve together. The planting season was upon them, and with it came the sweet smell of fresh earth being turned over, the laughter of children, and the gentle hum of people working side by side. Every morning, Clara rose with the sun, the first light illuminating her dreams. She felt invigorated, a sense of shimmering possibility coursing through her veins. One crisp morning, as Clara surveyed the newly planted rows, she noticed Graves approaching, a small cart in tow. He was flanked by a couple of settlers, and a slight tension gripped her stomach as he drew closer. Clara glanced at Jack, who offered her an encouraging nod. "You said you wanted to develop trading between our camps," Graves began, giving her a cautious look. "We've brought some supplies to help with the garden, seeds, tools, and a few extra hands to lend support." Clara blinked, momentarily taken aback by his sudden generosity. "You didn't have to do that," she responded, her voice laced with genuine surprise. "We were prepared to handle things ourselves." "Yes, but you're not just neighbors anymore," Graves replied, his tone earnest. "You're partners. We all stand to gain if we work together. Clara glanced around at the settlers, who nodded in agreement, enthusiasm reflecting in their eyes. With a mix of gratitude and newfound hope, Clara gestured for them to join. Then let's get to work. There's a lot to do. The group dove right in, working seamlessly under the sun that now bathed the camp in golden light. Days turned into weeks, and the garden flourished, transforming into a lush array of green shoots and vibrant colors. As time passed, the relationship between the villagers and settlers blossomed from tentative beginnings into a strong partnership. Trade agreements flourished, and a newfound excitement gripped both camps. They began exchanging not only goods but also ideas and traditions. Clara instituted weekly gatherings, encouraging everyone to share a meal where stories and laughter continued to weave the fabric of their communities together. In every dish served, there lay herbs from the settlers and vegetables from the villagers, each bite a testament to their growing bond. "That stew is fantastic," Clara said one evening, her mouth watering as she dug into a dish prepared by Mrs. Wilkins, a kindly settler who was getting to know the villagers. "I learned some of this from your people," Mrs. Wilkins replied with a smile, her face lighting up. "I think combining our recipes is the best part of this new friendship." As Clara witnessed the camaraderie deepening, she could hardly believe how far they had come from the tension of their initial encounters. At night under the stars, they would recount tales of bravery and survival, blending their histories into one shared narrative that began to feel like an epic saga. One evening, as the sky turned shades of orange and purple, Clara took a moment to reflect. She stood by the edge of the garden alongside Jack, watching as children played tag, weaving between the adults working nearby. "We've built something incredible here," Clara mused, feeling both proud and grateful. "It feels as if the Wild West is changing for the better." Jack placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "All of this is because of your vision, Clara. Your belief that unity could prevail, that people could come together despite their pasts. You're the heart of this community." Just then they heard the sound of hoofbeats approaching swiftly. Clara turned, her breath catching as she spotted Silas riding up, flanked by a couple of his men. Her heart sank momentarily. Old scars, barely healed, felt raw again. "What does he want?" Jack murmured, tension seeping back into the air. As Silas dismounted, his expression was grim. Clara felt Jack's grip tighten on her arm, preparing for whatever confrontation lay ahead. The laughter and joy that had filled the air took on an uneasy silence as the villagers and settlers paused, sensing the tension. "Clara," Silas called, stepping forward, "we need to talk." "About what?" Clara retorted, her heart racing. "You've threatened us enough already." He raised his hands, palm open in a gesture of peace, a rare sight coming from him. "I'm not here to fight." He glanced around at the villagers and settlers assembled behind her, tension hanging like a thick fog. "Things have changed since you settled here. I've seen what you've built, and—" He paused, collecting his thoughts. "I want to be part of it." A wave of disbelief rippled through the gathered crowd. Clara studied Silas, searching for any hint of deception or ulterior motive. "Why now, Silas? After everything?" Sighing, he stepped closer, the tension in his posture unraveling. "Because I realized something. This ain't just about land or gold. It's about people. Your community has something I've missed, something I want." He looked at her with intensity, desperation shining through. Clara glanced at Jack, who seemingly mirrored her caution. "And how exactly do you expect us to trust you after everything you've done?" "I'll earn your trust," Silas insisted, voice steady. "Let me help work the garden. I know the land. I can contribute just like everyone else. If you allow it, of course." A hushed silence fell, the crowd digesting his proposal. Clara felt hesitation wrestle with curiosity. What if Silas truly wanted to change? Yet, the shadows of his past loomed large. A girl's voice broke through the silence. It was Sophie, a child from the village stepping forward with wide, innocent eyes. "I think everyone deserves a chance," she said earnestly. "Maybe he can be good. Maybe he just needs to learn how." Clara felt a glimmer of hope in Sophie's statement, but doubt still swirled in her heart. "He has to prove he can change," Clara replied carefully. "But if it's sincere, then we need to give him the opportunity to show us." Jack spoke up. "We have to keep the community safe, but if Silas really wants to contribute, then maybe allowing him to work alongside us could be worth considering." He turned to the assembled group, gauging their reactions, which remained mixed. After a moment, Clara took a deep breath, an uneasy truce forming in her mind. "Okay, Silas, if you truly want a chance here, you can work with us in the garden. Just know that we will be watching." Silas nodded, gratitude flickering in his eyes. "Thank you, Clara. I won't let you down. I want to earn my place here." As she contemplated the road ahead, Clara found herself back at the precipice of possibility once more. Perhaps through embracing the complexities of humanity, the potential for change, they would strengthen both their communities further. With renewed purpose, the group settled back into work, an undercurrent of hope weaving between them. And as Silas took his place among the workers, Clara felt that the garden they had created together could nurture more than just crops. It held the power to change lives and build a tapestry of redemption woven from the fabric of their shared future. Days turned into weeks, and with each sunrise the newly forged community continued to flourish. Silas, much to the surprise of everyone, embraced his role in the garden. At first there were whispers of skepticism, but gradually the folks began to recognize his efforts. He worked tirelessly, digging, planting, and nurturing the crops alongside the villagers. His transformation wasn't instantaneous, but Clara noticed subtle changes in his demeanor. He smiled more, spoke with respect, and listened intently to the wisdom shared by Elder Tom and others. On a warm afternoon, while they were planting seeds for the next crop, Clara overheard Silas sharing farming techniques he had learned from his family. "That's how we used to do it back home," he said, showing a little girl how to correctly position the seeds in the soil. It warmed Clara's heart to see him interacting with the younger generation, fostering the beginnings of connection. As the bond between Silas and the community deepened, the camp became a blend of vibrant life and collaboration. Families worked side by side, pooling resources, sharing recipes, and helping each other. Clara noticed how laughter seemed to dance on the breeze during their communal meals, filling every corner with joy. Food, a powerful unifier, was shared freely, with everyone bringing forth their best dishes, resulting in evenings filled with feasting and storytelling under the stars. One night, as they gathered around a newly built wooden table set under the twinkling night sky, Clara felt a swell of gratitude. Conversations flowed, laughter echoed, and the atmosphere felt alive with potential. Clara took a moment to step back and observe the scene. Families laughing, friends sharing, neighbors discussing their dreams for the future. She could hardly imagine how far they had come, both the villagers and settlers forging a new identity forged from unity. But as their bonds deepened, Clara was acutely aware that with growth came new challenges. Tensions stirred in the neighboring camps. Not everyone was pleased about the newfound partnership. Some settlers viewed Silas's redemption with suspicion, believing that once a thief, always a thief. Clara sensed the whispers of discontent lingering at the edges of the camp, like a storm cloud approaching on the horizon. Just as she feared one evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Clara was approached by two disgruntled settlers. They scowled, clearly not pleased by the changes unfolding. "We're not sure about this partnership," one of them, a man named Collins, said bluntly. "He may have wormed his way in, but do you really trust him? He was never part of this community to begin with." "Trust takes time," Clara replied firmly, hoping her face conveyed confidence. "Silas is working hard and he's proved himself more than once. People can change." "Change just like that?" Collins scoffed. "We need to protect what's ours. We can't let this man's past come back to haunt us. If he betrays you, it falls on all of us." Clara felt a rush of frustration, but she squeezed her hands into fists, anchoring herself. "You don't know him the way I do." She paused, her voice steadying. "He's trying, day in and day out. If we can't be open to change, we'll never build anything worth having." With a look of disdain, the two men turned away, but not before warning her. "You'll see. When he turns back to his old ways, don't say we didn't warn you." Their voices faded into the twilight, leaving Clara with a knot of unease twisting in her stomach. That night, Clara confided in Jack about the confrontation. "They're going to keep pushing back, I can feel it," she said, frustration lacing her voice. "They don't see the potential just because Silas has a rough past." Jack nodded, understanding but wary. "We've had to fight every step of the way, Clara, but just like you always say, we can't turn away from people trying to better themselves. We have to lead by example." Right, Clara replied, determination lining her words. We need to show everyone that Silas is changing. If we create unity here, we can keep the divide from growing even wider. Throughout the following weeks, Clara focused her efforts on the garden and its growth, cultivating a culture of partnership and open dialogue. She encouraged Silas to help mentor those who were resistant, urging him to share his story with the community to help break down barriers. One evening, Clara facilitated a gathering specifically for Silas to share his past, the choices he made, and why he wanted to change. As the sun set, casting warm light over the gathering, Clara could sense the tension that murmured through the crowd. Silas stepped forward, swallowing the lump in his throat. "I've made choices I'm not proud of," he began, his voice steady, yet vulnerable. "I've hurt people, stolen from families, and lived a life that left a mark on my soul. But meeting all of you has opened my eyes. I want to earn my place. I want to be part of something good." The crowd was silent, the weight of his confession hanging heavy in the air. Clara felt her heart race, praying for understanding rather than judgment. Silas glanced around, his expression earnest. "I know trust has to be earned, and I'm willing to do the work." After a moment, a voice from the edge of the crowd spoke up. It was Elder Tom, his weathered face reflecting years of experience. "It takes courage to stand before your past," he said, his voice resonant with wisdom. "Redemption isn't merely a word. It must be lived daily, but you're right, trust is earned. If you're willing to toil beside us, you'll find that people will begin to see the real you." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, and Clara felt hope stitch its way through the air. Perhaps Silas's willingness to be open could bridge the gap that remained. Over the coming weeks, as Silas worked side by side with the villagers, Clara noticed a shift. The connection between him and the community grew stronger, his laughter mingling with those he had once considered adversaries. People began to offer him friendly nods in passing, building an unexpected camaraderie that sent ripples through the camp. Yet, as they embraced each other's stories and their shared aspirations, whispers of dissent remained, simmering just below the surface. Collins and his friends continued to watch with narrowed eyes, lingering skepticism, threatening the fragile bonds they had created. Clara knew that to keep moving forward, they'd need to confront this unease once and for all. One evening, Clara organized a meeting to openly discuss any concerns, inviting anyone who had lingering doubts to share their thoughts. As they gathered around the fire, the air crackling with anticipation, Clara offered a calm, steady voice. "We've come a long way, but I know there are still concerns," she began. "This is the moment for us to express whatever we need to in order to continue moving forward together." Collins remained quiet for a moment, glancing around at the faces of those who had once been friends. Finally, he spoke, his words laced with bitterness. "You can trust Silas all you want, but what happens if someone else decides to come back? This camp might not be safe forever." "We can't live in fear forever," Clara countered, her voice firm. "We've faced challenges before and we will continue to do so together. We can strengthen our community by being honest. Instead of letting fear lead us, we should support one another." The crowd exchanged glances, and Clara felt a brief flicker of hope as she sensed a small shift among her neighbors. It was the same hope that had lingered in her heart when they had first begun planting in the garden, steady and resilient. As they discussed their concerns and resolves, she saw the potential for dialogue take shape. Little by little, the tensions that had lingered began to fade, replaced by the shared commitment to work through their fears together. By the end of the night, Clara felt a deep sense of accomplishment. The meeting had been a success. It hadn't completely erased the underlying unease, but it had opened the door for further conversation. They would move forward, not just as neighbors, but as a community committed to understanding, trust, and collaboration. As they walked back to their cabins beneath the starlit sky, Clara took a deep breath, feeling hope wash over her once again. Together, they would cultivate more than just crops in the garden. They were planting the seeds of unity, resilience, and hope for a brighter future. And she knew that as long as they stood together, they could weather any storm that came their way. In that moment, the path ahead was clearer than ever, lined with the promise of a new dawn.